right, I'm currently reporting from downtown Los Angeles at 7 in the morning because my family and I are doing a run. It's called Diplo's Run Club. Shout out to Diplo. Not something I do too often, but I'm looking forward to it. You know, a little bit of exercise and family time. However, today we're going to talk about something very different than family time. We're going to talk about some poker time. I played a bunch of hands this week, once again on Hustler Casino Live. And things got off the rails kind of right away. It was definitely a roller coaster week for me. So we're gonna go over all those hands. Like always, a friendly reminder that this week I am having a meetup game on Clubs Poker. If you want to join, the link is down below, or you can scan the QR. And if you play at least 30 hands during this event, you're gonna be entered into a free roll, which is happening 2 days after that. It's actually gonna be at 2 p.m. Pacific, not 5 p.m. Not 5 p.m., which is what I said last video. We had to move it up 3 hours, but the details all remain the same aside from that. So if you guys want to join, you want to hit the free roll tournament as well on Saturday, this is the time and place to do so. Let's go for a run. Let's talk about some poker. I'll check in with you guys right after.
All right, guys, back at it here at Hustler Casino Live. Stream number 1 is 25.50 with some straddles. In the first interesting hand, Jellyfish raises to $300, and I look down at 9-8 suited in middle to late position. I think it's a good hand to 3-bet with and try to play heads up, so that's what I do. I make it 1,000 in position, back around to Jellyfish, who makes the call, and we find a very nice flop to start off the vlog. It's King, Queen, 6, all spades. That means I flop a flush in a re-raised pot, no less. Pretty sweet situation. Jellyfish checks. I continue for a small bet of $700, and I'm happy to see Jellyfish stick around. Turn card doesn't change much. It's the 10 of clubs. I hope he somehow interacts with this card, but my plan is to just keep betting once he checks again. This time I size up a bit to $2,000, and once again, Jellyfish does not believe me as he makes the call. This is setting up nicely for the river since he's only got around $4,000 left, and we couldn't ask for a better card. It's the deuce of hearts. We still have a very, very strong hand, so when Jellyfish checks a third time, I announce all in for his remaining chips. Jellyfish does not snap call. At this point, I think it's obvious we've got the winner. It's just a question of whether or not we're going to get paid, and the answer to that is yes, we are. He does not fold top pair, decides to keep me honest, but this time I've actually got it, so we win a $15,000 pot to start the night. Next, this hand comes up where Henry raises it up to $600. Nikki P, a new player on Hustler Casino, makes it $2,200. Kevin makes the call in the small blind, and then I look down at Queen Jack suited in the big blind. Now I'm taking a look at what's going on here, and Henry raises a lot of hands, so I feel like Nikki might be raising him a little bit wide. Plus the fact that Kevin has cold called in the small blind is giving me quite a bit of incentive to put in a raise of my own with Queen Jack suited. This is probably a bit too loose, even with all those factors I just mentioned, but since when is playing loose on a stream a bad thing, right? So I kick it up to $8,000. Henry makes a tight fold with his pocket eights. Nikki P, however, is not going to make a fold because he's got pocket aces. Instead, he decides to put in another raise. Kevin now folds his pocket jacks pre-flop, which is pretty impressive, but here I am with Queen Jack high, and I am not as impressive as Kevin. I decide to make the call out of position, which is even worse than the original raise, if I'm being honest. But here we go. Heads up to a flop, which comes queen high. It's queen 3-3. Mixed feelings about this one, because if we're up against ace king, we now pull ahead. But of course, if we're up against the dreaded aces or pocket kings, we're gonna lose some more money. I start with a check. Nikki P bets really small, $5,300. I decide to make the call, no point in raising, and of course can't fold. Turn card sucks. It's the ace of spades, so of course we now lose to those hands that maybe we were beating before, like the ace highs and whatnot. I check it again, and this time Nikki P checks it back. River is the 3 of hearts, and I've kind of made up my mind at this point that if he bets again, I'm just gonna fold. I would expect him to check back hands like pocket jacks or pocket tens, even pocket kings, so it just feels like we're only facing better hands if he does bet. I guess he could be bluffing with something like 8-7 suited, but that would be really difficult for him to have. So I check and now wait for a while before Nikki finally decides to put in a bet. I immediately fold, and at this point, guess what happens? Nothing worth talking about, at least. So we move to the next hand where Henry has pocket jacks and I have ace queen suited, but it's not that simple. Henry's got 2 buttons. We're playing the bounty game. If he wins this next hand, he collects a bunch of money from the rest of the table. For that reason, I decide to limp in, as do other players. Mr. NYC now raises to 500. Big Mike and Daniel make the call, and then Henry goes for the squeeze to 5k, actually 5.5k. Back to me now, and I have definitely under-repped my ace queen suited. I suspect Henry is not going to be super out of line. He'd probably just call the 500 with a bunch of hands, so this is a little concerning, but also he's going to be raising a lot of worse stuff, and even hands we're flipping against, just like this one. So I decide to raise in position. I make it $15,000 to go. Everyone else folds, but Henry does not. He announces all in for around 40 or 50k. I think it was 45 actually. Yeah, that's what the graphic says. Now it's back to me, and this isn't necessarily a fun spot. We could be up against ace king. We could be up against pocket pairs like queens, kings, or aces, but I've kind of made up my mind that if Henry goes with it, I'm doing the same. So I make the call, and we have nearly 100,000 in the middle. In what's pretty much a coin flip, he's got a slight edge. We flopped the nut flush draw though, which looks pretty awesome. Turn card does not bring much help. It's the 6 of spades. River is not an ace, a queen, or a club. Instead, it's an offsuit jack. And Henry ends up holding in this huge pot, which is unfortunate because not only does he collect a giant pot from me, but he also gets the extra 1k bounty that I have to pay on top of that. So a pretty big spot for Henry to hold, and this takes a huge chunk out of my chips. In the next one, there's a limp from Kevin before I make it 1,000 on the button with 7-6 suited. Good hand to raise it up with, I think. Henry makes the call in the straddle, as does Kevin. So we go 3 ways to a flop of king, jack, 10. 1 club out there. Of course, we don't really connect, but since I'm the pre-flop aggressor, I think I'm going to have the most advantage on this kind of board. Henry checks, Kevin checks. I continue for a bet of 2,000. Henry's out of there with his pocket 8s, but Kevin sticks around with his middle pair. Not exactly what I wanted to see, but of course, we do have more opportunities to bluff on future streets. The deuce of diamonds is a bit tricky because we don't necessarily improve, but I still think he's going to have a lot of weak 1-pair holdings. Let's say things like 10-9, perhaps ace-10, hands like jack-9 suited, all sorts of middling strength hands that are not going to love facing another bet. And for what it's worth, I would size up with some value hands here like straights, sets, 2 pairs. Y'all get the point. Kevin checks, and now I do exactly that. I bet $11,000, betting around 1.5 times the pot size, trying to put maximum pressure on those middle strength holdings, exactly like the one he's got. If he can pass this test, then he's probably in good shape for the river, because I'm not a huge fan of going for massive bluffs after getting called in overbets. Sometimes that's not going to be the case. It's definitely situation dependent, but in this spot, I'm probably going to give it up, because if he does call now, he shouldn't really have that many weak holdings anymore. Obviously, I'm dead wrong about that because Kevin does make the call with middle pair, no kicker. I kind of expected that type of hand to fold. So when the river comes to king of hearts, I just give up and check it back, and I'm a bit disappointed to see that we couldn't make it work on the turn. Kevin sticks around, and this time it pays off, so we lose a $30,000 pot here. And with that, we arrive at the last interesting hand of the first stream, in which I have 10-7 of diamonds. I raise it up over a limp to $500 on the button. Daniel now makes it 2,000 out of the big blind. It gets back around to me, and a hand like 10-7 suited I think is okay to continue with here, almost always with just a call, but once in a very spicy while, I like to use it as a 4-bet, especially against a player I haven't played with before, since we don't have much history, and it seems fun to mix it up with the new guys from time to time. So I make it $6,000 this time. It goes without saying that you really don't ever need to do this. In fact, you could probably just fold pre-flop to a re-raise, but here I raise it up to 6k, and we go to a flop of queen 6 deuce with 1 diamond. Pretty dry board. There is a diamond out there, and we have 3 to a straight plus 3 to a flush, of course. So I think it's fine to keep betting. I bet 5k once he checks. I think I should have sized down a little bit, maybe something like 3 or 4k. It's not a big deal though. I make a bet of 5 and Daniel makes the call. Turn card is the 5 of clubs, shouldn't really change much. And at this point when he checks, we have to decide between giving up or continuing to go for it. And I kind of like both for different reasons. On one hand, we have a terrible holding, so giving up is probably not that bad. It's probably better to bluff with hands that have some outs. Let's say something like ace-4 suited or 8-7, you know, stuff like that. 10-7, it just really can't improve if he's got a queen. On the other hand, he could have a lot of hands that might fold, like ace-high. He could have some pocket pairs like 8s, for example, 9s. He might even have something like pocket jacks. He could have some flush draws. Y'all get the point. So I weigh the two options back and forth, and I decide to go for glory with another bet. Now, in terms of sizing, he's got 35k, which is around 1.5 times the pot size, and I like going for maximum pressure with an all-in. I would do this with ace queen or better, and that's really all the excuse I need for doing it with 10-7. Looking back, I don't like this, to be honest. I think the play is fine, but the hand I chose to do it with is a bit too ridiculous. And in the end, after much deliberation, Daniel does make the call with top pair, top kicker. I think it goes to show that he took so long with top pair, top kicker. This probably would have worked against those weaker hands I was targeting. So a little bit of bad luck to run into this exact hand, but at the same time, it's just an unnecessary punt from me. This is a giant level donkey punt, and we're probably going to put this one in the... What's the opposite of Hall of Fame? The Hall of Shame? Let's put this one into my Hall of Shame. He makes the call. I'm drawing dead, and I think it's funny to run it twice when that's the case. So that's what we do, and of course, we don't win either board. So lose a massive pot here, rather unnecessarily. That's how it goes sometimes. But at least we have another stream left, which perhaps might bring some salvation for me. The game is bigger today, and we're going to start things off with an action hand right away. I have pocket 9s. I raise it up to 600. Airball makes it 2,000 on the button. Everyone else folds, and it gets back to me. I think calling is the standard play, so that's what I elect to do. And we go to a flop, which looks pretty damn good. It's 9-8-5. Top set on a somewhat wet board against an aggressive player. I check, airball does bet now, and he sizes up a bit, $3,000, and I'm just going to go for the check raise right away. There's a bunch of bluffs I could have on this kind of board, so why not do it with value hands too? I make it $14,000 to go. Airball makes the call, and we see the jack of spades on the turn. A couple of straights get there, I suppose, but my hand is still way too strong to check. So I bet once again, this time betting 24,000, around 2/3 of the pot size. Airball is still not done with it and makes the call. So we have 80k in the middle as we see a blank on the river, the deuce of hearts. Actions on me once again, and Airball's got around 54,000. I cover him in this hand, and I decide to go for all of it. If he's got a better hand, so be it, but I think there are plenty of worse holdings that might call, like the one he's got here, pocket queens. This is not a fun spot for him, but I understand him eventually making the call. This time it works out for us though, as I've got it, and we win this nearly $200,000 pot. Not a bad start to the night at all. Next, this hand comes up where Kevin limps in for 200. I make it 800 on his left with pocket 8s, and then action gets to Senor Tilt, who 3-bets to $5,300. A pretty big sizing, but in position with a hand like pocket 8s, I think we should still call and try to set mine. As you guys can see, Senor Tilt has a bunch of chips, so it seems worthwhile to go hunting for a third 8. I make the call, and we see a flop of Queen, Queen, 4. Not the best, but not the worst for my hand. He checks, which makes me feel a little better. Could bet small here for some protection or value, but I think checking is also okay. This time I decide to check, and we get a 5 of hearts on the turn. Pocket 8's still looking pretty good, but this time Senor Tilt puts in a bet of $8,000. It's relatively big compared to the pot, so I don't think raising really has much merit. He's representing a hand better than mine or a bluff. Folding also out of the question, so I stick with the standard play and make the call. Hoping for a clean river, but it's the opposite. The ace of spades. A lot of bluffs now get there if he did have a bluff to begin with, and that paired with the fact that he now bets pretty big, $30,000, has me really not loving this spot. I guess he could have some bluffs like Jack 10 suited or King Jack, whatever. But we could just have some better hands to call with, and I don't want to overthink this one. So I let it go, and luckily we get to see ace 10 of diamonds. I guess it was an unfortunate river card, but at least we don't lose too much more money. In the next hand, we are switching targets from Senor Tilt to Chunks, a new player at the table. I open it up to $1,200, and he makes it $5,200 to go. He doesn't have that many chips remaining, so despite the fact that I have ace 5 suited and sometimes 4-betting with that hand is kind of fun, I don't really want to do that and then face an all-in. And looking back, now that I can see the cards, I'm really glad that I chose to just call, because he almost certainly would have just gone with it. So I make the call and we go heads up to a flop of king 5 deuce. No spade out there, but of course middle pair is still pretty damn good. So after I check and he bets 4K, I'm definitely sticking around at least for one more card, and we improve to pretty much the nuts, the 5 of clubs. Now I'm praying that he wasn't bluffing the flop and he does have something like ace king or king queen perhaps. I check it. Please bet again, Chunks. No, this guy is too smart. He checks it back, and we see another deuce on the river. Ace high is most likely what we're up against now. But the question is, how much would I bet if I had a bluff? Let's say I had 7-6 of hearts or 7-6 of diamonds, you know, something that flops enough backdoor potential on the flop to stick around but now has to bluff. And I think the answer to that is around the size of the pot. So I do some rough math in my head and throw out exactly that much, $18,000. He doesn't seem to love it now with ace high, but obviously he can't just fold right away because he does beat some bluffs. In the end, though, he thinks better of it and lets it go, which of course is not great for me since we were looking for a call. But of course can't complain too much after winning with ace 5 versus ace queen. This next one is a weird one. Be warned. Kevin limps in again for 200. I raise it on his left to 800 with queen 8 suited. About the worst hand I would try to raise a limper with, but here we go. I make it $800 to go. Back around to Kevin now, who makes the call, and we go to a flop of king 9-8. We've got bottom pair, not much else aside from that, but I still think it might be the best hand, so I decide to bet for some protection and value. I put in $1,200, at which point Kevin check raises, and he uses a big size, $9,000. Of course, this is kind of scary with my exact hand, but the thing is, he's very weighted, at least this is what I'm thinking in real time, he's very weighted towards draws. Reason being is if he had pocket 9s, he would have raised pre-flop. If he had pocket 8s, same thing. Pocket kings obviously would have raised pre-flop. King 9 suited, I guess, is possible, but there's only 2 combos of that. And king 8 seems pretty unlikely since I've got an 8 in my hand. What does seem quite likely to me are hands like flush draws, straight draws, combo draws, gutters. All of those hands he might be playing aggressively, and technically speaking, we are ahead of those hands. So I decide to put in a really weird, unorthodox 3-bet on this flop up to $30,000, kind of just going with my gut that I've got the winner and I want to get maximum value against flush draws, straight draws, and all that stuff. Now, the obvious argument against this is that even if he does have those hands, mathematically, he's going to be in really good shape against bottom pair. So you're kind of pumping up the pot, hoping that you're up against a draw that you're probably flipping against. Does that seem like the best idea? Not really. But I said at the start, this is a weird one. Kevin makes the call, and we have 62,000 going to a turn, which completely sucks. It's the 5 of hearts. 7-6 suited gets there. 7-6 offsuit gets there. And of course, the flush draw gets there as well. So when he checks, I kind of just give up and check it back. River is the 10 of spades, and now Kevin assembles a bet of around half pot, 35K. I don't expect to win this one. Even Jack 10 now beats me, although I guess he wouldn't bet that hand because he rivers a pair, but you get the point. It's just not going to work out. I let it go, and it's nice to at least see, looking back, that we did put in $30,000 on the flop with the best hand. Just not the run out we were looking for, but what can you do? Here I've got ace jack, raise it up to 500, airball 3-bets the button to 2K. Senor Tilt cold calls from the small blind. Kevin also cold calls, and now it's back to me. I think folding is out of the question with a hand this strong, so it's just a matter of do I want to raise again or make the call. And I think I'm happy to primarily make the call. Maybe some stronger hands I would raise, but ace-jack offsuit. Let's just see what happens on the flop. So I put in some extra money, and we go 4 ways to ace 10-7 rainbow. Top pair, decent kicker, but A bit dangerous when I check it over to airball and he continues betting. This is an ace high board and he's betting into 3 opponents. Not necessarily fun with ace jack. We could easily be up against sets, 2 pairs, ace king. But of course he could still have some bluffs like straight draws and whatnot. So when it gets to me, I make the call and we go to a turn card which isn't necessarily the best. The 6 of hearts. 9-8 gets there. That was the most obvious draw on the flop. But we can't just assign him that, so when I check and he now bets $12,000, I'm going to stick around one more time and see what develops on the river. I put in the money and we go to one last card, which is just bad to worse. It's the 9 of spades. We now lose to even more hands. Really anything containing an 8. There are some 2-pair possibilities now, like ace 9 even gets there. And that's assuming we had the best hand on the turn. Now, as you guys can see, we actually did. And airball got quite lucky on this river card. We had him in rough shape, but no longer. My man has got the nuts. It's just a question of how big does he want to bet. And he settles on double the pot size, $80,000. In my experience, when players bet double the size of the pot, they almost always seem to have it. And as you guys can tell, this is no exception. Still, I think it over for a bit, but my immediate reflex is to just let this one go. It also kind of sucks to have the jack of hearts because he might have turned some flush draws once in a while that decide to bluff the river, but me having the jack of hearts makes that a little less likely. So, yeah, my hand is just way too weak to call a bet this big. I make a reluctant fold eventually, but certainly save some money because $80,000 is a lot of chips to lose. Nice hand airball. Let's move to the next one, which is the last interesting hand of this stream. Once again, I've got ace jack. Here we see a raise from Senor Tilt to $2,000. Big Mike makes it $5,500 on the button. And now, well, it's a little different than last hand, let's just say. Senor Tilt was opening a bunch of hands. Big Mike, a very active player. He's on the button as well. This could be a whole lot of nothingness going on, and as you can tell, neither of these dudes has the strongest hand. Pocket threes and 10-4 suited, so I decide to spring into action from the big blind with ace jack. Not the most fun hand to build a pot out of position with, but at the same time I think it's strong enough in this exact circumstance, so I kick it up to 15k. Back on Senor Tilt now, who makes the call after a bit of thought, as does Big Mike. So perhaps I've got myself in some trouble as we go to a board of King, King, 9 rainbow. I decide to bet small here. Generally, a high paired board is still going to favor me more than these guys. So I put in 12k, trying to bet around, a third, a quarter of the pot. Senor Tilt thinks for a bit and makes the call. Big Mike is out of there. We go to a turn card, which is the 9 of hearts. And my immediate thought here is we're probably ahead of some pocket pair at this point. Now, of course, I look like a genius when that's exactly what he's got, but that's really what I was thinking in real time. I don't think he's going to have a king too often. Even a 9 is not super likely in a 4-bet pot. Instead, he might have hands like pocket deuces all the way through pocket jacks. I think jacks he might have re-raised pre-flop, so unless he's got exactly pocket 10s, he might be counterfeit now. For that reason, I decide to check and see if he wants to bluff. It seems maybe my read is wrong though, because Senor Tilt checks it back. I feel like if he did have a small pair, he would have started bluffing, so not really sure where we stand now. River comes the ace of diamonds, and I think at this point you could make a case for betting. Worse aces might call, and I know this board is kind of confusing, but technically my hand is now aces and kings with a jack kicker. We could get some value from something like a small suited ace or ace 10. But at the same time, he might still have some hands that miss, like straight draws. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's got a king. Maybe he's got a 9 and he was kind of slow playing on the turn. So instead of putting in a somewhat thin value bet and perhaps face a massive raise, I decide to just check and see what happens. And what happens is Senor Tilt assembles a bet of $55,000. Not a small chunk of change, but it's also a little less than the pot size. So we're getting a decent price to make this call. And after underrepresenting my hand, it's probably not going to be a fold. I think it over for a little bit, but in the end, just can't let this one go. So it's time to pay the man if he's got me beat. I slide in the chips. It turns out he does not have me beat though. He took a stab with pocket threes. It does not work out this time, and we win one of the biggest pots of the night, nearly $180,000. That was the last fun one. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for some final thoughts.
right, so I completed the race, which was a 5K. I'm not much of a runner, but I think that's around 3 miles. If you guys live anywhere but the United States, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. 5 kilometers. It was a good time. It felt good. A little bit hot, but overall, I highly suggest you guys get out and try a local run if you haven't. It's a good excuse to hang out with friends and family as well. But anyway, let's talk about poker, specifically the poker you just watched. On Wednesday, things did not really go my way. I ended up losing something like $80,000, but then on Friday, I won around 85. All things considered, still a very good week when you come out ahead. Certainly better than losing, but also not the most action-packed result I've ever had. That brings us to the next vlog. I'm going to be traveling to Arizona and playing at Talking Stick tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in some Phoenix poker, or I think they're in Scottsdale, but anyway, if you guys are interested in some out-of-state poker, make sure to stay tuned. I think it's a 25-50 game, so it should be fun. And also keep in mind, we have the meetup game coming up this week, which is paired with that free roll. There's a bunch of money in the prize pool, and all you have to do to qualify is play 30 hands in my meetup game. So this is the QR, link is down below. I hope to see at least a few of you guys there. I'll also stream it on my YouTube channel, so that'll be fun. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Until next time, good luck at your local tables. Peace.